Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and let the air of the present slip away from your skin. Imagine a world without lamps, without the sound of carriages, without digital time dictating your pace of life. The sky is still dark, though the day has turned. The main road is nothing more than damp earth, filled with the tracks of wagon wheels and bare feet that have never known shoes. The houses around you are made of aging wood, their walls coated with dry mud that often crumbles in the heavy rain. There is no running water, no sewage system, only wooden buckets and shallow trenches separating waste from home. In the distance, the church bell rings, not to welcome hope, but merely to remind that time keeps passing. This world does not belong to the rich. They live far away in castles or large towns, where their walls are stone and their stomachs never empty. Here, life is chewed slowly by cold, hunger, and tax. Everything is burdened. Grain is taxed, salt is taxed. Even your existence is measured and recorded for the state. The king still sits on his throne, but you, the weaver, have never seen his face. All you know are the names of tax collectors, the scent of stale bread crusts, and the sound of your stomach curling inward each night. There are no feasts here, except for the rats who find the crumbs before you do. This year, the harvest failed in many places. The rain stayed too long, the sun hid too often, and the stomachs of the people are like torn sacks that cannot be filled. And in the middle of it all, you must work. Weaving, though thread is growing scarce. Weaving, though no one is buying. Weaving, because that is the only way you are still counted as alive. Silence hangs between tall trees and dirt roads untouched by stone. The scent of wet wood and soot from a small hearth drifts faintly through the air. The wind seeps gently through the straw walls, whispering old tales never written down. Night comes sooner, and morning is a promise not always kind. In the embrace of another time, let us return to a world that moves slowly and carries the weight of hunger. Let us sit at the edge of a straw bed and feel the rhythm of a life that no longer knows comfort. Imagine your body thin, your skin coarse from the cold, and your hands full of small wounds from endless labor. Imagine the sting of an empty stomach that is never truly full. There are no supermarkets, no guarantee of dinner, no promise that tomorrow will be different. But despite all of that, life continues. Let us go back to the year 1765, to a small village in northern France. In a crumbling house with a leaking roof and a cold hearth, a weaver wakes before dawn to a world that is not a dream. This is not a tale of heroes, nor a story of kings. It is the daily breath of those never remembered. And perhaps tonight you will come to know them. Imagine yourself in the year 1765, in a small village in the region of Normandy. In years like these, the body becomes a burden that slowly falls apart. People do not speak of the future. They only ask if there will be grain tomorrow, if the neighbor's donkey is still alive, or whether their child will wake up in the morning. Dawn has not yet touched the small window veiled in mist. There is no ticking clock, no morning bell. Only the cold, piercing to the bone, and the emptiness that pulls you out of sleep. You stretch beneath a rough cloth used as a blanket. Your eyes open slowly, still crusted with sleep. The air is so thin, even breath feels reluctant to stay. The first sound you hear is a neighbor's child crying behind the thin wall, perhaps from hunger, perhaps from a nightmare. No one answers. You sit up slowly. Your spine creaks. Your bare feet meet the damp dirt floor. You already know there will be no breakfast today. Perhaps a piece of hard bread, if you are lucky. But your stomach has long learned how to wait. You put on the same clothes as yesterday, and the day before, and all the days before that. Your arms slip into the worn fabric, steeped in sweat and time. Your hair remains tangled. There is no mirror to reflect you, no reason to smooth yourself. In the corner, your loom sits silent like a sleeping beast. But you know it will soon rise. It hungers for work. And outside, the sky is still gray, but the day has begun. Your voice has not yet emerged, but your body has already spoken. Today is no different from yesterday, and that is the only certainty that remains. Life moves not with ambition, but with endurance. Children stop growing too soon. Their teeth rot before their time. Many never get to become adults because they leave too early. Plagues still come and go like the seasons. Fever, dysentery, a small festering wound can turn into a death sentence. Medicine is not for people like you. If you fall ill, you just sleep and hope. If you do not wake up, you are simply buried. The church records death not as tragedy, but as routine. The narrow path to the field also leads to the grave. And though death is always near, you still must rise each morning, still must wind the thread, tie it, weave it, align it. Your house is small and dark. The floor is dirt. The walls leak when it rains. Inside, the air smells of damp fabric, cold ashes, and a body seldom washed. Your clothes have been patched many times. The soles of your feet are dry and cracked, but your hands still remember how to weave, even when your stomach protests and the world blurs from hunger. And because of that, you remain alive. Not from hope, but from habit. Imagine you wake before the light has truly come. Your steps are heavy but slow. There is no reason to hurry. You know the day will be long, not because of many events, but because time has no mercy for the hungry. Every minute will crawl like a tired ant. You fill a clay vessel with water from the jug. The water is cold, and though your body shivers, you splash it on your face to make sure you are truly awake. There is no soap, no towel, just hands, water, and the intent to still appear human. In the small kitchen, you check the flour sack. Your fingers reach the bottom, finding little enough for a thin dough, which can hardly be called bread. But you mix it anyway, water and wheat remnants, hoping warmth from the fire might give the illusion of fullness. You light the fire with damp wood. The smoke fills the room. Your eyes sting. But it is better than the scent of an empty stomach. In another corner, a dead rat lies, perhaps trapped overnight. You throw it away wordlessly. It is not an unusual sight. Sometimes rats are easier to find than food. You hear footsteps outside the house. Perhaps your neighbor, also heading to work just as uncertain. No greetings, no smiles. Only silence that understands how mornings in a poor village are a quiet promise repeated without choice. You sit on a wooden chair, one leg nearly broken. Sitting is a pause, not a luxury. You look at your hands, rough, small wounds from unforgiving thread. These are hands that work, but not hands that have ever been held with gentleness. You stare at the wall, where once a wooden clock hung. Now only a nail mark and stain remain. Time keeps moving, but it never arrives for you. You walk into the workspace, if it can still be called that. The walls are damp, the wood moldy, and the windows no longer have glass. There, your loom stands like an old, tired skeleton, with leftover threads hanging like forgotten spiderwebs. You touch it slowly, as if calming an animal that has been pushed too far for too long. The creaking of wood is its only reply. You sit on a low stool, and your back aches instantly. This seat was never made for comfort. It exists only because the floor is too cold to sit on. You begin pulling the threads, trying to align them one by one, as if weaving hopes too thin to be called real. These threads came from the spinner in the neighboring town. You bought them with debt, a promise that your finished cloth will one day be enough to pay. But no one truly knows when that day will come. Some threads are too short, some snap before they are even placed. You do not cry. The hungry do not cry. Tears require energy that those living on scraps do not possess. Your children are still asleep. They huddle together, small bodies warming each other under a cloth that once was your wedding robe, now faded and full of patches. You do not wake them. For what purpose is waking if there is no bread for them to bite? Outside, a thin mist hangs between trees and soil. A rooster calls the morning with a hoarse tone, as if tired of a world that keeps repeating. You continue weaving. The sound of the loom becomes your daily rhythm, a slow and monotonous beat that replaces the ticking of time. Across the road, your neighbor's house is silent too. Some of them have already left the village, chasing life in cities that promise wages but hide other miseries. They never return. Perhaps out of shame, or because they have nothing to bring home but thinner bodies. You are still here. Still with a loom, still with threads that are not enough, still with a morning that feels too long. As the morning light begins to slip through the cracks in your wooden walls, you stop weaving. Not because your cloth is done, but because it is time to leave. Occasionally you avoid puddles, but more often you let them soak the hem of your skirt because it no longer matters. In front of your house, the door is slightly open. Through the gaps in the wood, you hear a small cough and the creaking of the wooden floor. Your children are awake. They do not run to greet you. They simply sit still, staring blankly at the door, as if hoping the figure who enters will bring a miracle that never arrives. You enter without speaking, place the unsold cloth in the corner of the room, then sit on the floor. The air inside does not move, and the wooden walls seem to hold their breath. Your eldest child comes near, their big dark eyes looking at you without question, only sitting beside you and resting their head on your shoulder. The youngest curls up in the corner, playing with tangled threads that have long been unusable. Their stomachs are concave, skin clinging tightly to bone. You know they are hungry, but they also know complaining is useless. In the kitchen corner, the remains of bread from 2 days ago still lie on a cloth. You divide it silently, breaking off a small piece for each. Their teeth must work hard to chew it, like biting dry wood. But there is no complaint, no tears. Only long silence, like a prayer never fully spoken. Outside, birds chirp faintly, creating a rhythm that contrasts with the stillness inside the house. You look up at the ceiling, where cobwebs stretch between wooden beams. I wonder if life has always been like this for people who have nothing. It is not hunger that hurts the most, but the guilt of being unable to give anything to those you love the most. But you bury that thought quickly, like every thought that does not help you survive. You stroke your child's head, then slowly stand. The day is still long, and there are threads that need drying. You take the neatest piece of fabric you managed to finish this week. Not large, not perfect, but intact enough to offer. You wrap it in an old rag and tuck it into a bag made of coarse sack. Outside, the ground is still wet from last night's rain. Your steps are slow because your straw shoes are worn and the mud clings to your heels like hands unwilling to let go. The road to the market is not straight. It winds and climbs, passing neglected fields and houses aging alongside their owners. By the roadside, you see a small child sitting near a fence, eyes vacant, cheeks sunken, clutching a piece of bread hard as stone. He does not eat it. He only holds it like a sacred object too precious to consume. At the village market, the bustle sounds weak, like the echo of a life half extinguished. The vendor tables line up, but not all are filled. Some stand empty, abandoned by sellers who gave up on the season and the hunger. You stand near an old woman selling soap. She greets you with a smile that does not reach her eyes. Buyers rarely come early, too busy searching for fire, water, or something to cook. You unwrap your bundle, revealing your cloth. A man walks past, glances briefly, then moves on. No bargaining, not even a word. Just a fleeting look full of rejection. The wind blows gently, carrying the scent of salted fish and dry earth. Someone coughs harshly at the end of the market, followed by an unusual silence. People no longer turn at the sound of coughing. They only hope it is not their turn. Disease comes like rats, quiet and creeping, slipping among the fragile crowd. You continue to stand, letting the sunlight touch your face briefly before returning to the shadow. You sell nothing this morning, but you do not cry, because this has become normal. And what is normal no longer hurts. It only feels empty. You return home as the sun rises higher, retracing the same path, past the same faces unchanged since morning. The sun climbs higher, unhurried, slipping through the cracks of the roof and drawing faint yellow lines across your dirt floor. You are already seated at your workstation, nothing more than an old wooden board and the loom your mother left behind. Its sound is distinct, rhythmic, repetitive, like a breath forced to stay steady. The children lie in the corner, their bodies thin and light as rags. They do not play, do not speak, only open their eyes now and then close them again, as if they too are beginning to learn that midday is a time for silence. You begin weaving with the thread you dried earlier this morning. The cloth you produce is not particularly smooth, not beautiful, but good enough to sell to a neighbor woman or trade for a pinch of salt. Your hands move slowly, not out of laziness, but from exhaustion that never truly fades. Your joints are stiff, your fingers often tremble. But you cannot stop because no one else can replace your hands. Outside, sounds from the village occasionally drift in, the cry of another child. A man yelling, drunk on cheap wine. The wooden wheels of a peddler's cart, pausing only at homes that still have coins to offer. You pause for a moment, listening, but no one comes to your door. Your loom resumes. Within these threads lies hope, however small. Each piece of fabric feels like a wish to survive just one more day. You once heard about the weavers' strike in the city. They were paid little, treated like dogs. But in the village, there are no strikes, only silence and surrender. There is no boss to blame, for hunger arrives faceless. It slips into homes slowly, through wind, through quiet, through cloth that fails to sell. Sometimes you wonder if this fabric is not meant for selling. Perhaps it will wrap a body bound for burial. But you push that thought away. This afternoon must still go on. Your loom sounds again, soft but certain, like a heartbeat unwilling to stop. Evening comes like a shadow creeping slowly through the trees, entering the houses without a sound, bringing a chill not born from the wind. Your stomach has remained empty since the hard bread last night. In the corner of the kitchen, an iron pot sits empty, its bottom lined with a faint crust from the last boil 2 days ago. You know that if you light a fire, the scent of smoke would deceive the children, make them think something is cooking. But there is nothing to cook. You stand for a moment, looking out through the wooden slats of the window. In the distance, a neighbor scratches at the soil, searching for anything to turn into soup. Sometimes roots, sometimes discarded onion skins. Meanwhile, the sky begins to change. Deep red and gray tones blanket the village, making everything look older than usual. The children begin to whimper, not out of mischief, but hunger. They don't know another word to describe it. One of them tugs at your shirt, and you gently stroke their head, soft but empty, as if that touch could replace food, as if love alone could delay death. You recall your grandmother's words that God created hunger so people would keep praying. But you are too tired to believe. Once hunger was a pause. Now it is identity. You do not need to introduce yourself to anyone. Your face already tells your story. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, a voice with no tone. There are no mirrors in your home. No need. You already know what you look like. Your weaving still hangs on the wall, unsold. There was no market today, no demand. Maybe next week. But you know next week promises nothing more. Even hope begins to sound like a lie whispered too many times. You sit again, and the night begins to seep through the cracks of the door, bring in the sounds of insects and dew. The children fall asleep before their bedtime because empty bodies cannot wait for night to finish. And you remain where you are, watching your own shadow stretch along the wall. You are not waiting for anything. You are simply letting the day end. Night arrives with no promises and no surprises. It comes, as always, with slow, silent steps, like someone who knows there's no need to knock to enter. In this village, night is not a closure that brings relief, but a continuation of the day that never truly ended, simply exists, wrapping the village in a cold and silent blanket. Your house grows darker as the final candle finally gives out. There is no sound except the creak of the roof's wood, perhaps from the wind, perhaps from age. Your eyes refuse to close. Sleep does not come easily, not when your body is more occupied holding back hunger than fatigue. You curl against the corner wall, seeking warmth from the stone itself, as if it could return a hug. Your hand still clutches a bit of thread, a piece of unfinished work, even though you know it serves no purpose tonight. In the distance, a dog howls. It belongs to no one. Just another starving creature wandering the ruins of the village. You know this dog. You gave it crumbs 2 months ago. Now there is not even a crumb. The world is quiet in a strange way. Too quiet, so every heartbeat feels intrusive. Every small movement echoes in the silence, as if your house is listening. You think about tomorrow, but there is no plan, no market, no orders, no news. You hope it will rain because dried cloth sells better, but the sky remains clear, cold, and indifferent. You wish for something to do, some excuse to move. But the night is long, and the next day comes slowly, too slowly to carry hope. No revolution knocks on houses like yours. No posters are pasted on these mud walls. Everything happens far from you, in city streets you've never stepped on. But hunger was already here, even before they cried for justice. It arrived first, sitting quietly in your corner, becoming part of the routine, like worn-out clothes still worn though they offer no warmth. You do not know what will come. But you know that tonight, like so many before, will pass in silence, with your eyes open and your stomach still empty. Inside your small, damp home, the last of the candlelight flickers, casting tired shadows across the earthen walls. In one corner, the children lie side by side, their bodies too thin for their age. Their breathing is steady, though not the breath of peaceful sleep. Their bodies have simply given up from lack of strength, not because their minds were ready to rest. There are no pillows, just arms wrapped around each other in whatever rest they can manage. Outside, the wind carries sounds from the chicken coop and the chatter of mice foraging through the neighbor's barn. Sometimes you hear a soft cry from across the lane, perhaps a mother whose child did not wake from sleep. But no one comes. No one knocks. Grief here is a private affair. You sit alone on a small broken stool, one leg wobbling, staring at the cracked earth floor. Your hands have not stopped weaving, though there isn't enough light to see clearly. That skill is no longer merely a job, but a habit now etched into your bones. Even when the world around you falls apart, your fingers still seek rhythm. But no cloth will save you. No thread is long enough to become an escape. What you weave tonight will not be bought by anyone. There will be no visitors, no celebration, no market day. Perhaps there is revolution in the city. Perhaps people in Paris are speaking of rights and liberty. But here, nothing changes. Only night arrives, and the stomach remains empty. The larger world feels like an illusion, and your life remains within the reach of that flickering candle. Small, warm, almost out. The hours keep passing, but nothing changes. The night offers no surprise nor comfort. Dawn does not arrive with warmth. It comes like a stranger who knocks softly, then slips in without a sound. A thin light seeps through the cracks in the wooden wall, reflecting ash not yet swept and dust that dances slowly. The dew has not melted, and the footprints you leave vanish quickly into the morning mist. This village road is short, only a few houses on either side, but it feels long when you don't know what you're looking for. You walk slowly, not from exhaustion, but because there is no clear purpose. At one house, a window is slightly open, revealing the eyes of an old woman who gives a faint nod and then disappears again. No greetings, no words. Just the mutual understanding that today, too, will be a quiet day. In the empty fields, nothing grows. This season is too cold, and the soil has gone too long without being tilled. Even the weeds refuse to survive. In the distance, you see a child sitting at the edge of a well, his face pale, his clothes thin, and he stares at the water as if looking at something far away. You do not greet him. He does not move. Everything is still, like a painting hung too long without a frame. The bakery at the end of the road has long been closed. Its shutters nailed shut from the inside, and on its door, a knife scratch mark still shows where anger once struck when the last bread was sold to someone with more coins. In the small market that used to buzz with voices, there is no bargaining, no shouting. Only empty crates overturned, and flies still hoping for crumbs. You stand there, in the middle of a market that is no longer a center of anything. You carry no cloth. There's no one who wants to buy, no one who can buy. Behind you, the church stands still, its door slightly ajar, and from within, a low hum of prayer can be heard, not for salvation, but for food. Even hope now sounds like hunger. You realize this road leads nowhere. It only loops, bringing you back to the same place. To a home with no answers, to a day with no content. This world, the world of a starving weaver, is a narrow circle, and in each corner of it, there is only silence and dust. There is no sound of chickens, no chime from the village church bell. Even the birds seem unready to greet the morning. Your body has not moved, still lying in the same position as last night, like a corpse awaiting a funeral that will never be held. In that silence, you try to take a deep breath, as if morning air could replace the dinner you never had. But the air only brings the damp scent of earth and rotting wood. A new day begins, but nothing is new. Today is a copy of the day before, and perhaps of 100 days before. Nothing awaits. Nothing is expected. The cloth you wove yesterday remains rolled in the corner, its color faded, its thread rough, and even if finished, unlikely to be sold. People do not buy beautiful things when they are hungry. They sell what they have and trade anything for food. You did the same, once exchanging a blanket for 2 rotting potatoes. And today, Even that kind of barter does not exist. The outside remains silent. No neighbors open their doors. No children run with buckets. Everyone saves their strength, perhaps choosing to sleep a little longer so hunger doesn't feel so long. You sit up slowly, not from energy, but because the stone floor has started to press into your back. Your head throbs, not from illness, but from malnutrition slowly crawling through your blood. Then you stand. Not because there's something to do, but because lying too long only makes the world feel smaller. Morning light is brighter now, but still cold. There is no magic in a new day. It is just another empty page to endure in silence and patience. Your first step outside feels unfamiliar. The ground beneath your feet is hard and frozen. Time no longer feels like a current, does not flow like a river, does not tick like a clock. It hangs in the air like a fog that refuses to lift. The walls are made of clay and straw, cracked in every corner. Light enters through tiny holes in the roof, forming thin rays that drift slowly with the dust. On the floor, an empty sack serves as your seat. In the corner, a cold stone hearth stands unused, untouched for the past 2 days as firewood has run out. You cannot recall the last time there was fire in this house. The last meal cooked was a porridge made from aged wheat husks. It was bitter, but still better than the cutting edge of hunger. Beside the hearth, a cracked clay cup holds the last of some dusty water. You sip a little, not caring whether it's clean or not. Clean water is a luxury no longer sought, only accepted when it happens to appear. In the ceiling, spiders weave undisturbed webs. Dead insects cling to them, rotting silently. The tiny world inside this house has not changed in weeks. Even the rats have stopped coming. There are no crumbs left to find. In the thick silence, you sit and study your hands. Dry, cracked, covered in small wounds from the coarse threads you once worked with. Your fingers were once skillful. Now they tremble when they move. You still keep the last of the yarn in a wooden box, not enough to make anything worth selling. No one wants cloth when they cannot even afford bread. Outside, the wind brushes against loose tiles. No voices speak. Even the birds do not sing. The only sound is your own breath, as if the entire world has stopped breathing, except for you. You close your eyes, hoping sleep will come, but it does not. Your belly refuses to stay quiet, humming with bitterness. And time, like before, does not flow. It curls up inside this house, exhaling silence, refusing to leave. The world has shrunk to the size of this room, and life itself has narrowed to slow breaths and a heartbeat that knocks weakly against the walls of your chest. You stand for a long time in that spot, between the empty market and the road that leads nowhere. Your legs begin to stiffen, but there is no reason to walk any further. The sun is still low in the sky, but bright enough to make you squint. No shadows move. Even the dogs are absent this morning. Perhaps they've left, searching for a place beyond the village that might offer a bone or a carcass. You sit on the steps of an abandoned house where once a cobbler worked before he went bankrupt and vanished. You knew him. He also wove cloth when the harvest failed. Now he is simply gone, like a leaf carried by wind. Time does not mark the departure of the poor. They leave without sound, without trace. Only the smell of wet straw and a creaking door remain. Across the road, an old man carries an empty sack on his back. His steps are slow, his eyes lowered, and you know he isn't searching for anything. He is just walking so he won't sit still and wait for death. Like you, like everyone here. The children no longer play. They do not run. They sit quietly, hugging their knees, rocking their bodies gently as if trying to fool their empty bellies. There are no tears. Crying requires strength. And in this village, strength is not wasted. Someone strikes a metal bell near the well, not as a signal, but as a habit that cannot be broken. The sound of the bell feels heavy, echoing in your hollow stomach. No one answers. No one approaches. And time continues not to move. It offers no change. It only holds everything in a long pause that has no end. The world has stopped without ever declaring that it has stopped. You step back inside the house, not because anyone waits for you, but because the air outside no longer offers comfort. Sometimes faint sounds drift in from the empty street. Not crowds, not singing, just the slow steps of someone passing by or the distant creak of wooden wheels. You hold your breath when you hear it, hoping it brings something. Maybe a merchant, maybe a bearer of news, or simply a reminder that the world outside hasn't completely died. But when you open the door, all that's left is cold air and the scent of wet earth. No people, no cart. Only faint footprints in the mud, soon swallowed by the wind. You know today will bring no change, no extra food, no new work, no good news. The neighbor next door, who used to greet you, is rarely seen now. Some have gone to the big city, looking for work as laborers or just hoping to steal bread from the market. Others have long since gone silent, their homes sealed tight, windows covered with torn cloth. It's unclear whether they're still alive or have already gone quietly. You once tried knocking on their doors, but no one answered. Eventually, you stopped trying. Everyone carries their suffering behind their own walls. In this village, hunger has made strangers of everyone. One afternoon, an old woman sat on the stone steps near the small church. Her clothes were torn and her feet swollen. She stared at the ground for hours, unmoving, silent. When night fell, she was gone. No one knew where she went, and no one asked. Here, loss is not a surprise. It comes slowly, like fog, and settles without sound. Your own home is both a fortress and a prison. Every stone holds silence. You hear the sound of the rough mat as you shift slightly to lie down, and your own breath sounds louder than before. It's strange how heavy quiet can be. There is no clock, but you know the night has not yet fully arrived. The sky outside is still gray, like old cloth you once wove years ago. Now you only wait, not knowing what for, not knowing how long. When evening descends, there is no golden light like the paintings of noble salons. In this small village, dusk feels like the final breath before the body gives up. The light fades slowly, slipping through the cracks of a roof that has begun to rot. There are no bells ringing, no roosters crowing, only the creeping chill entering inch by inch, threading through wood gaps, brushing skin, and sinking into bone. You sit on the floor, knees drawn to chest, trying to hold on to a warmth that barely exists. You light a candle, even though its wick is almost gone. Its small flame dances restlessly, as if it knows it, too, is nearing the end. In the corner of the room, you stare at old cloth that never sold. Rolls of gray linen, leftover wool threads, and scraps of hemp that now only add dust. Once you were proud to see them, now they are merely memories that failed to become bread. Outside, the wind carries the scent of mist and something bitter. Perhaps the scent of another home burning its last wood in the hearth. Perhaps the scent of human skin, unwashed for seasons. There's no certainty, only imagination wandering silently. When you try to sleep, there is no soft bed, only a worn mat and a thin blanket scrubbed too many times. You curl your body like a child, though there's no embrace, no mother, no one at all. Outside the window, there are no stars, only thick, unmoving clouds. A few times you hear mice squeaking in the rafters, but fear is gone. Even those small creatures merely share the space, equally hungry, equally silent. In a place like this, the fear of loss becomes something quieter. Even hope shrinks and shrinks until it becomes the last flicker of a candle that is about to die. At last your eyes close, not from peace, but because the body has completely surrendered. There is no lovely nighttime ritual, no prayers, no bedtime tales, only a quiet resignation that arrives slowly, like fog settling over a frozen field. You do not sleep to dream, you sleep to forget. Forget the emptiness in your stomach. Forget the shadows of children who once played near the doorway. Forget all the promises of liberty and equality that stopped at noblemen's tables. On this heavy, starless night, the world feels like a piece of cloth washed too many times. Wrinkled, thin, ready to tear. Outside, the rats still scurry, searching for crumbs that do not exist. In the corners of the room, cloth lice stay still, waiting for skin too weak to resist. Sometimes you hear a long cough from the neighbor's house, a deep, wet cough that signals something that will not improve. But no one comes to help. No bells ring, no doctors arrive, only silence becoming habit. You breathe slowly, and your breath sounds like a falling leaf. Fragile, soft, almost nothing. Your stomach growls, but its voice is now a whisper. In this darkness, time has no shape. The seconds feel like additional weight, not a reminder. No one waits for you in the morning. There are no new tasks, because there is no new cloth. There are no buyers, for everyone is hungry. Even the shopkeepers in the market now trade only by barter. You have nothing, not even words worth exchanging for bread. So you sleep in a weariness not from labor, but from hope. You sleep in long silence, holding yourself and letting the cold world slowly forget you. Dawn arrives like an unwelcome guest, not with warmth, but with a pale light that slips through the cracks in your broken wall and shattered window. There are no birds singing, no noisy markets, no laughing children. Only the soft hiss of morning wind carrying the scent of rotting straw and dead embers. You open your eyes not because you've rested, but because your body can no longer remain lying down. Your knees throb and your spine feels like an old wooden beam ready to snap. The floor is still cold, colder than the night before. Your hand tries to wipe your face, but the grime on your skin has merged with fatigue. You sit slowly, listening to your stomach sing again with the same hunger as yesterday. There is no breakfast, no corn porridge, not even water left to sip. In the bucket, only a muddy film and leftover grass from last night. You thought about boiling the dirty water, but even firewood has been gone for 2 weeks. There's a tiny bundle of straw, but you saved that for tonight. Outside the window, the fog still clings to the ground. No people in sight. Perhaps they chose to stay in bed, or perhaps they did not wake again. The house across the street appears empty. The door is ajar, its hinges sagging, and there's no movement inside. The world is not yet dead, but it feels like a final breath that refuses to leave. You stand up with effort, searching for a purpose, though there is none. No orders for cloth, no money to stitch for, no comforting voices from the church or officials. They are silent. They are waiting for something to explode. But hunger is not an explosion. It is erosion, slowly wearing away from within. In the corner of the room, old threads hang limp, tangled, and unused. Your fingers touch them gently, like saying goodbye to something that once mattered. And among the fog of dawn and your frozen breath, you realize today is nothing more than a repeat of yesterday's wound, with a little more dust. The sky does not turn blue. It merely shifts from deep gray to lighter gray. The sun seems to rise reluctantly, as if it knows its light is unwelcome. There are no harvests, no green meadows, no golden wheat fields. Outside the house, the frozen ground cracks beneath your feet. You walk slowly, without clear direction. Every step reminds you that your body is fragile. In the distance, a neighbor sits by the roadside, eyes vacant, hands rubbing their belly as if searching for something long gone. You nod gently toward them, without words. Body language becomes the only language left when energy to speak has long disappeared. On the main street, shops are closed. Not because of a holiday, but because there is nothing left to sell. The baker stopped baking long ago. The flour is gone, the yeast spoiled, and their ovens are filled with cold ash. The church stands quietly, its doors open, but no one enters. Even prayer feels futile when the stomach keeps twisting. You trace the edge of the road, passing the old market. There, rotting wooden stalls lie scattered, and the sour smell of old meat hangs in the air. That place once rang with laughter, chicken clucks, bargaining cries. Now, only silence. A thin dog sniffs the ground, then walks away with its tail between its legs. You stop in front of a house you once knew. Its windows are shut with tattered cloth. Its children used to play there. Now, silence. Perhaps they have gone, or been buried quietly, as often happens lately. No energy for ceremony, no burial cloth, no crying. Even grief has become routine. And in that midday, though the clock suggests it is time to work, there is no work, no cloth, no hope. Only time moving forward, like a wheel spun by tired hands. Dusk arrives slowly. There is no orange glow dancing in the sky. Only a quiet shift from gray to ash, from light to dim, from a hard world to one more still. There are no lamps, no candlelight in the homes because candles are a luxury, and oil belongs only to those who have something left to trade. So night comes as pure darkness, unbroken, silent, with cold crawling from the floor into the spine. In the corner of your home, you sit hugging your knees, leaning against the wall that still holds a faint trace of the day's warmth. Outside, the ground freezes and the animals that survive dig into hiding. Small rats search for crumbs. A bird lands on the window, then flies away without a sound. In the distance, the sound of a cart passes, perhaps carrying someone who has just surrendered to the past weeks. There is no ceremony, no word spoken. Just a strip of cloth and frozen earth that buries itself. In your house, scraps of old wool are tucked in a worn pouch. You touch them, not to weave, but because the texture reminds you of former days, when your hands were strong, when colors still lived in your eyes, when the sound of thread pulled across the loom felt like music, not like the shadow it has now become. The children who remain, if any, are already asleep. Hunger makes them weary quickly. No stories, no lullabies, only deep silence, and breath lingering between the cracks of wooden boards. Night falls not as a closure, but as an empty space without end, where time no longer moves. Inside those small homes, there is no sound except breathing and sometimes a quiet cough. Sometimes just the noise of an empty stomach, or the soft creak of wood reacting to the weather. Outside, the wind drifts through alleys, brushing against crumbling brick walls, carrying the scent of earth, mold, and something dead. Time passes slowly, not like a ticking clock, but like dew settling, barely visible. On nights like these, thoughts drift far, not toward the future, but into memory. Market days when everything felt alive, when colorful fabrics hung from tents, when laughter echoed. But those memories are like paintings that cannot be touched, only seen, then they fade. Your body curls inward, wrapping itself in cold. There is no hope that tomorrow will be different. No food awaits. No weaving orders are coming. Only time and a silence so heavy it feels like a sound without voice. There is no fire in the hearth, nothing left to burn. All wood is gone, as are the objects once thought useful. Even chairs and tables have turned to ash. You do not cry. Tears do not come, not because you are strong, but because the body holds no strength for them. Crying is not part of this life. Only silence remains. In the neighboring village, people begin to speak of injustice, of landlords hoarding harvests, of a king unaware of what happens in these huts. But your voice does not join, not out of fear, but exhaustion. This night is not a place for dreams or rage. It is only a place to endure one more hour, then another, until the day returns. When the hour nears midnight, no clear change can be felt. No bell rings, no light marks the passing of time. Only the temperature shifts, lowering slowly, sinking into the stone floor and creeping into the bones. The wind that once brushed now begins to bite. The rats in the attic are more active than usual, as if they know no one will chase them tonight. Outside, a dog howls in the distance, responding to a silence that has lasted too long. No footsteps echo on the streets. The town feels dead, and its people live suspended in pause. You are still awake, not by choice, but because the hollow in your stomach will not quiet down. Hunger is no longer a feeling. It has become a condition. Like air that cannot be avoided, like time that cannot be stopped. Someone in the next house coughs violently, then goes quiet. You do not wonder. In times like these, every sound might be the last. Then the silence returns. In the corner of the room, a small portrait hangs crooked, half covered in dust. The eyes in the image stare into the darkness, as if they too wait in silence for morning. Maybe you once thought of escape, of a better town, of distant relatives who might help. But all of that is too far. Distance is not just a measure of space, but of hope. And hope, like wood for the fire, has long run out. So what remains is silence. In a darkness so gentle, it does not ask you to close your eyes. You lie down, not to sleep, but to wait. Because tomorrow is not a new day. It is a repetition of the old, and this night is not yet done. There is no crowing rooster, no gentle church bell ringing to wake the town. Morning does not arrive as a celebration, nor as hope. It simply appears like a thin mist sneaking in through the window's cracks, cold, faint, carrying no promises. The sky changes from black to gray without enthusiasm. The house remains frozen, the floor still hard, and your body half asleep in full awareness of a day that will be the same. Nothing has changed from the night before. Only the order of time shifts slowly. You rise not from eagerness, but because there is no reason to remain lying down. Outside, the streets are still quiet. The shops remain closed, and the sky hasn't yet decided which color it will wear today. In such a setting, nothing truly begins. You put on the same clothes as yesterday and the day before. Clothes that have lost their shape, fabric that is thin and cold. No warm water, no fragrant soap. Just a bowl of water set aside last night to wash your face. Even that is now cold as stone. You look into your reflection in that faint surface. Nothing is surprising. The same face, the same eyes. But the longer you look, the more unfamiliar it feels. Like seeing someone you once knew but no longer understand. Then the day starts, not with steps, but with a slow drag. One by one, sounds begin to emerge. Doors open, cartwheels roll. Small footsteps from children awaken to work. Everyone moves without passion, as if performing something long predetermined. Like old gears that keep turning even though they're rusted. And within all of it, you are just a tiny part, nearly invisible. As the hours crawl toward midday, the village begins to sound alive. But this life is not warm or joyful. The sounds that rise are not laughter, not singing. They are the hurried steps on dirt roads. The clink of metal against stone as rough shoes scrape gravel, and sharp whispers that more often judge than greet. The bakery opens, not out of eagerness, but because not opening means dying faster. Inside, a long line forms even before the dough is fully baked. Mothers stand holding empty baskets. Children stand quietly beside them, learning early about patience and hunger. There is no scent of butter, no tempting crackle of crust. Only a faint smoke and hard black bread, closer to stone than food. Those who can't afford to buy still come, just to stand and watch, hoping a leftover piece might fall. Or someone might suddenly feel generous. But generosity doesn't live here. It left long ago with the last rain that gave a good harvest. In the market's corner, the fabric seller sits still. His goods are rolled up neatly, untouched. No one buys new cloth when old clothes can still be mended. And those who mend, like you, are starving because that work is worth nothing now. You pass through the market like a ghost. People recognize your face, but do not greet you. You are not needed. Needs have changed shape. Now, only food matters. And work that cannot be eaten becomes invisible. The market never truly buzzes. It only hums faintly, like a starving bee flying through snow in search of flowers. You keep walking, avoiding gazes, avoiding questions you don't want to answer. How are you is not a question. It is a reminder that everyone knows you haven't eaten. As the sky darkens again, there is nothing to wait for. No oil lamps light the roads, no windows glow warmly. There is no sound but your own breath, light but restless, like thin paper blown by an impatient wind. The world around you sinks into cold, into silence, into a kind of loss so quiet no one recognizes it as loss. Outside, the night animals move slowly, and the sky reveals its stars only to those strong enough to lift their gaze. But not you. Your eyes remain closed, not because sleep has come, but because time has become too heavy to witness. Your house still stands, but it is not shelter. 'Tis an old shell, reminding you of everything you do not have. In your mind, there are no plans, no clear hopes, only faint outlines of tomorrow, likely to feel just like today. Then, slowly, your body yields. Weariness, hunger, cold, and time itself wrap around you in a silence so slow. Sleep finally comes, not like an embrace, but like fog. Not warm, not cold. Just hazy enough to make you forget you are still alive. In a world like this, that is the truest form of rest. So let the night swallow everything. Let time move without name, without face. Sleep now, starving weaver, as many others did before, and will after you. The world does not record your name, but the night remembers. In the voiceless dark, your breath becomes part of history. Not the kind written in books, but the kind that lives in air and dust that never truly leaves. Night comes like a curtain slowly drawn, covering everything in shades of gray. You return home not because you want to, but because there is nowhere else to go. The floor remains cold. The wind still creeps in through cracks left unmended. There is no conversation, no warm dinner steaming on the table. Only silence and a stomach tight from being empty too long. In the faint glow of a leftover candle, You sit and fumble with thread, tying one strand to another. Not because there's an order to fill, but because your hands don't know what else to do if not working. In the corner of the room, a rat scurries slowly, bold because it knows the human in this house no longer has the strength to chase it away. There is no effort to sleep early, for sleep doesn't come quickly when the body is starving. Your thoughts drift, not far, just toward tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't promise change. It is only another version of today, perhaps a little colder, perhaps a little quieter. In the distance, the church bell tolls once, then falls silent. No one replies. The night stays mute, holding all the cries inside the bellies of men and rats alike. You close your eyes not to rest, but to avoid reality. But even dreams are reluctant to visit homes like this. And finally, time dissolves like dew that never had a chance to settle. Night has fully taken over.